Hi, I'm Chelsea Hewsome, your host of the Lip Service and Lashes podcast. I'm an entrepreneur, author, speaker, and mom of two. And I'm so tired of women not feeling like they can show up as fully expressed versions of themselves. So here, we're all about that unapologetically, because honestly, we don't have time not to. Literally, because we're busy as F moms and entrepreneurs, but also figuratively, because we don't know how much time we have on this planet, and we want to make an impact now. But if we're doing this, we're making it real vibes only. So let's get inspired, laugh our asses off, quite possibly cry, and feel like you're sitting on the couch with your bestie and a glass of wine. I'm so happy you're here. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Lip Service and Lashes podcast. I'm your host, Chelsea Hewsome. I am so glad you're here today, and today I want to talk about someone very, very near and dear to my heart. If you follow me on social media, you know recently one of my family members passed away, and I just really wanted to... I've been, thinking through it, and he meant so much to me that I just really felt the need to talk about this on the podcast, just to share a little more. So my godfather, Gene, who I've always called Gino my whole life, passed away this January. And I'm going to get into what he meant to me, and kind of our background together, but, I'm going to start off really with the most recent. It was on a Sunday afternoon. I was walking into my son's basketball game, and my mom had texted me, and, she said, "Hey, Gino's in the hospital. They, don't think he's doing very well." And so, I know I'm walking into basketball. I have 2 games ahead of me, and I'm like, okay, try not to completely lose your mind and completely just start bawling through the whole thing. I was not successful as much as I tried to, kind of hold it in. I still sat there and cried the whole time. Really, Gino, my godfather, and my godmother Sharon literally are 2 of my favorite people on the entire planet. Entire planet. I adore them. I always have. They're just so special to me. And I always, literally had dreaded hearing news like that since I was, for many years, right? So this was on a Sunday. My kids did not have school that following day. And, I could have been like, oh, I'll try to go home this weekend, this coming weekend, and really plan it out and all of that stuff. But I told my husband, I said, I need to go. I feel like I need to get there as soon as humanly possible. And so I decided to take my 2 sons out of school for a few days. And then we literally left that following morning on that Monday at 5 a.m. And I'm like, we just got to get there. So we make the flying 11-hour trip home to my hometown in South Dakota. And they were troopers. I gave them snacks. They got their iPads. They're just binging movies. But I was like, guys, we got to get there. So like I said, they were all about it. They're like, yes, this is important. We need to go. So I get to my mom and stepdad's house. My mom and Gary's house, and my mom's like, "Hey, let's have dinner, but we're glad you're here. We wish it was under different circumstances, but I think you need to get to the hospital tonight. It's feeling urgent." So I was like, "Okay, Mom, yep, let's go." So at this point, my boys and Gary are hanging out at home, and my mom's like, "Let's just you and I go," because we really just didn't know how he was doing. And, get there and, saw him, and it was tough to see him like that, but, I'm just so grateful that I got to see him. But I just knelt down, held his hand, told him I loved him. He knew who I was, thank God. And just kind of got to talk to him a little bit. And then another man and his girlfriend had come to talk to him. So I kind of moved over to the side of the room, and this man, I don't know who he was. Clearly he knew Gino well. And he just went up to him and was like, he was very somber, and he just said, "Gene, I just wanted to come thank you for everything you've done for me. I can never thank you enough. You changed my life, and you really helped me out when I needed it." And, to be able to hear that was really amazing. And because I know the kind of person he was, and he touched so many lives and so many people, and the fact that this man, made an effort to go to the hospital and had to tell him in person, it meant so much for me to hear that. And I know that was not the only guy or person that had done that. It was just really touching and powerful. And then he left, and, I went back down and kind of crouched down and held his hand again. And he said, "So special, so special." And honestly, to be able to see him in person one last time, for him to know who I was, because he had kind of been deteriorating pretty fast. And for him to say, "So special to me," literally meant everything to me. And it was like one perfect last time for us to talk and just kind of have a moment. And I will literally never forget that. It's such a special moment in my heart. And, I will forever thank God that we just went and got there, because if I would have waited any longer, he wouldn't be there, or he wouldn't know who I was, because this was on a Monday night, and on Wednesday night he passed away. So if I would have been trying to overplan and coordinate things, or I don't know, just overthink things, and been like, "Oh, I'm going to go this weekend," I would have totally not been able to see him. And so I'm just, at some point in life, you just got to go, drop literally everything and say, enough, go. This is what is important. And so I am so grateful that I got to see him and say goodbye, say I love you, and, have that moment with him. And then, like I said, he passed away 2 days later. And I had just gotten back home, and his funeral was, a day or two later, and it felt very weird. I watched it on my laptop, which is just odd in itself. But literally, the entire church was packed, packed full. And again, he lived such a selfless life, and he did so much for so many people in our community that he left such a big hole. He is forever missed. And so really kind of, that's the more recent stuff. But I mean, how he came into my life really is my mom and dad met Gene and Sharon at church before I was born. And they all, they had met through volunteering at church and things like that, and became very close. And so I think Gene and Sharon were just a natural fit to ask to be my godparents when I was born. So I was looking at all these pictures of me and Gino when I'm like a tiny little baby, and, and just amazing to be able to look back and know he was in my life for 41 years, and such a just an amazing part of my life and such a beloved part of my life. And he built my first swing set, and when my parents got divorced when I was 3, I actually spent time, or Sharon watched me for I think quite a few years until I went to preschool. And so I spent so much time over there. Like, I literally can picture their house intimately in my head. Like, I've spent so much time there and I just love it. And I have dreams a lot that I'm in their home, and it's just like it's a safe, like, place that my soul knows so well, that's so special to me. And Sharon and I would bake all the time. Like, she is an incredible baker and artist and painter, and I mean, just like all these things. And so she'd get me into all these cool things, and we would bake. And Gino he had the biggest sweet tooth, like, ever. And she was always so sweet. She would, so we'd bake cookies, chocolate chip cookies. And then she would always put like a little container of raw cookie dough in the fridge and for him later. And he would like just gobble it up. It was so cute. And how he ate so much raw cookie dough in his life and did not get salmonella poisoning is beyond me. But like, she always had the little extra cookie dough for him in the fridge. And I vividly remember he was a very gifted woodworker, and he had his own wood shop in the basement. And I remember there was this little tire swing that he had made that he hung from the rafters in the basement. And I was like, gosh, probably 4 or 5, 6, right? And I'm down there just swinging away for hours on end. Like, I spent so much time down there. And I would listen to tapes of oldies, whatever she had. I don't even know what she had, but like hours of oldies music I would just be listening to and swinging. And I was like living the dream. I was so happy. And he'd be in his little wood shop working away and, sawing things and building things and all this stuff. And like, I just remember us spending hours down there. He's in his wood shop building stuff, and I'm swinging and, like chatting in between. And I would he'd get me a ladder, and I'd go pick mulberries off their mulberry tree and just like eat ridiculous amounts of those. But like in the community, so he just, like I said, he was such a really positive figure in our community. He was a member of the Lions Club for 50 years. That's pretty much unheard of anymore. Like, no one does anything for 50 years anymore. It's sad. So he was a member of the Lions Club, and I remember every year around May 1st, which I believe is May Day, they would do a pancake breakfast, because they always had these little May Day candy baskets that I would get. But they would do a pancake breakfast, and then, me and my family would go every single year. And of course, I would have to wait in line until he could cook my pancakes, because of course, those are the only ones I wanted, and they were the best. And he'd always be smiling and just cooking all these people pancakes. He and Sharon were ticket takers at the South Dakota State Fair, which is in my hometown. And, I think they did that for like 40 years, like a really long time, again, like just so cool. But he also would do the 50-50 raffle. He was known as the 50-50 raffle guy. And he was just like, as a child, we'd go to the races, or we'd go to a concert or whatever at the fair, rodeo, and he was always there, like just a fixture there, and I just loved seeing him. He also, later in life, he helped a local funeral home for like, again, 20 years for that. But he would be, if you had to go to a funeral, he would be kind of helping direct people outside and, that kind of stuff. But he helped them for many, many years. So people, in the community, again, are seeing him in that way, serving others. He always was helping other people make their life better. And he never worried about himself, ever. And it's just such a special person, because you don't really find a lot of people like that anymore. And then also he worked for a electrical public service for quite a while. But then like later in life, he was a handyman, like a do-it-all, going helping all these people around the town do all this stuff. And literally, I mean, he had so many little old ladies in town. I mean, like I really think it was like 30. I'm not joking. He would go shovel. If a snowstorm comes, he's like out shoveling everyone's walks for them. He was mowing their grass in the summer. He was on the roof fixing their roofs or fixing stuff in their house, or, probably if their like sink broke, he's probably helping them, fix that. I think he literally was on roofs when he was like 80 years old. And Sharon was finally like, you need to stop going on roofs. You're like 80, and I think he finally reluctantly agreed to like stop going on the roof. But at his funeral, I heard, they told stories of how he was trimming a tree once he was working with his son, and he was up climbing in this tree and it got tangled in the power lines and he literally got electrocuted, and, and he somehow lived. And they said he went to the power company and literally asked them, like, why did I live? Like, why did I live? And if you know him, he lived. God let him live through that when most people would have died, because he had so many plans for him, and he touched so many people's lives. He made other people's lives better. And, they talked about how Sharon showed up once to a house that he was working at, and he was on the roof and the ladder was on the ground. I mean, he was just always getting into something, right? And he was so like, just like this feisty, like fun guy, and just like kind of a stinker in the best way possible. And God, it's just amazing. And then when I was home to see him, my stepdad had told me that for years he had been like, he had been helping people with kind of like small loans. And, if people couldn't get approved by the bank, right, he would step in and be like, hey, I'll help you out. I'll help you loan this money so you can fix up your house or do this or that. Right. And again, like, think of all these ways, all these things he was involved in, all these things he did to help make other people's lives better. And he truly left a hole in the community. When he passed away, it's like on the front page of the paper in our town. Like, I don't think they do that for everybody, but he was such a pillar and such this amazing person in our community that gave back to so many people over the years that it goes without saying, I mean, it makes sense. And I don't think, like, I will forever be so grateful to have had him in my life. And truly, like, he was one of my absolute favorite people on the entire planet. So beloved to me and so dear. And I think it still hasn't hit me that he's physically gone and he's in heaven, because I don't live back there and I don't see him, so that'll be hard, each time I go home to like remember again that he's physically not there. But I really wanted to take a little bit of time and talk to him. And he was 82 when he passed away. And if I could live to be 82, man, I will take it. I will take it. I mean, that to me he lived such a rich life, full of experiences. And, like I said, I would happily take living till 82, but it made me wonder, like, I'm 41. So if I get that lucky, right? I'm not guaranteed. None of us are guaranteed tomorrow, right? But if I'm that lucky to live to 82, my life would be half over right now. And it's like, it makes you think, like, how are you living your life? How are you showing up in the world? How are you impacting others in a positive way? How are you making people's lives better in serving? Right? It's like, how have you shown up to now? And how are you going to keep going and really live like Gino and serve others and make people's lives better and help them? And, he was so selfless. And so that's really kind of the takeaway from this is like, I just really want to encourage us all to kind of sit and think, like, up to now, how have you been showing up in the world? How have you been serving people, inspiring people, changing people's lives for the better? And how can we even do it even more moving forward and live like Gino and strive to make the world a better place? He literally left the world a better place just by him. It wasn't these grand, huge things that he did. Just by him doing these little things every day for others, he truly changed our community. And so I thank you for listening. He just was so special. And like I said, I'm so grateful that he wasn't true family, but he was family. He was always family to me. And I just challenge you to live like Gino and go out into the world and make it a better place and make it beautiful. So thanks for listening. Sorry for all my sniffling. But always remember, no BS, just real vibes. Thank you for listening. Have a great day and go live like Gino.
If you loved the episode, share it on Instagram and tag me so I can say thank you and meet you. Or share it with a girlfriend who you know would love this too. Always remember, no BS, just real vibes. See you next time on Lip Service and Lashes.